NFL players, what we're hearing, it's not about not having pride. They're saying they're patriots. They love this country. What does the president say when you look at history and see how people love this country but wanted to challenge the system to make it better?
I think if we're going to look at history, we should look at the thousands of Americans who have given their life to protect that flag, to protect that anthem. The president is simply talking about what we're for, not about what we're against. And certainly this administration will always be for protection and celebration of the flag and the national anthem, and that's not going to change.
Sarah, wait a minute, to clarify. Sarah, 1 second, just to clarify on that.
I don't think there's much to clarify.
Yes,
I think it was pretty black and white there.
People are very divided on this issue. It is a racial issue for some people.
Incredible, the results that we've had. People can't believe how successful that has been. We have done an incredible job. We've done a really good job. I'm there to help, I can tell you.
The government of Puerto Rico will have to work with us to determine how this massive rebuilding effort will end up being one of the biggest ever, will be funded and organized, and what we will do with the tremendous amount of existing debt already on the island.
I am very satisfied. I know it's a hard storm to recover from, but the amount of progress that's been made, and I really would appreciate any support that we get. I know it is really a good news story in terms of our ability to reach people and the limited number of deaths that have taken place in such a devastating hurricane.
When you're drinking from a creek, it's not a good news story. When you don't have food for a baby, it's not a good news story. When you have to pull people down from their buildings, because I'm sorry, but that really upsets me and frustrates me. Damn it, this is not a good news story. This is a people are dying story. This is a life or death story. There's a truckload of stuff that cannot be taken to people's story. This is a story of a devastation that continues to worsen because people are not getting food and water.
We are dying here. And I cannot fathom the thought that the greatest nation in the world cannot figure out logistics for a small island of 100 miles by 35 miles long. So, Mayday, we are in trouble.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water.
You're listening to TMI for the week of October 2nd, 2017.
And then his thing with the Jones Act saying it might annoy some of the American shipping companies. And it just sounds like a catch-22. Right, they unload the ships en route to Puerto Rico and then reload them onto American ships.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds efficient. Wonder why Puerto Rico has a big national debt. I'm just saying.
Yep.
I mean,
well, that's why I'm saying that. That's why I was suggesting that it smacks of colonial racism.
I just don't see how you could. I mean, we say that with everything that happens every week with Trump. It always has the same pattern. And we always go, boy, that sure sounds like just overt racism, whether it's excusing his hood-wearing supporters, David Duke.
It just doesn't make him,
whether it's confusing with the football, the protest over Black Lives Matter versus the flag, or whether it's the immigration ban, or whether it's the Jones Act.
Yeah. I guess it's slap your forehead, kind of like, okay, what are they thinking? I mean, if you believe in market force economy, okay, fine. Then you also realize what threatens it, and what threatens a territorial economy is by having ridiculous policy like having tariffs or bad public policy stating that, okay, you need to transfer ships from a foreign flagged carrier to terra firma in the United States and then transfer to American flagged carriers and blah, and you realize, okay, that's not efficient with respect to time management. It's not efficient with respect to keeping things financially under a certain pre-established number, and it's just generally not efficient.
It reminds me of Africa. The white man made sure that all the regions of Africa used different gauge rail line, so that all the goods would have to be unloaded and reloaded as it entered each new. It's exactly the same pattern, no?
Well, again, this is the theme of the podcast since number one, and the chicken. It doesn't matter whether it's the United States or whether it's England or France or Russia or China. The aggressive foreign colonial policies that have been established in the last 500 to 1,000 years, or I guess you could go back to the Roman Empire or to the Ming dynasties or to the Romanovs or to whomever. Colonialist policies. I guess it's just part of human evolution. We need to shake our bunny ears in sadness to the passing of Hugh Hefner, who died a couple of days ago at the age of 91.
He had sold the house he was living in with the condition that he could stay there.
Oh, that's very cool. You're powerful when. You can sell your house, but by the way, I'm your house guest. That's the only way you can buy this house.
Would he be a good house guest?
Yeah, I think you'd be a really interesting house guest. I mean, my God, to talk about, the early days of the magazine, when he just after what was it? I think he moved out of his parents' place in 1953 and had been writing a children's activities magazine, and so he would have. What did they say? I think he knew Norman Mailer and George Miller, I think it was, or somebody. Anyways, a lot of really interesting people back in the day. So it would have been interesting to hear his stories of what it must have been like going against the.
It seems to me that I would be woken up in the middle of the night by a weird glow and sound of voices and go down to the kitchen and see a bunch of people crowded around the fridge using the fridge light as a room light. And one would say, "Oh, we didn't want to wake you up by turning the kitchen light on." Meanwhile, my milk is like warming for the last hour because a bunch of people at 3 a.m. are.
That sounds like Hiawatha. Or it would be the simulation of a desert winter, and you come downstairs and the front door and the back door will be open in the middle of January, and everybody's sitting around the kitchen table with their hands around their coffee cups, respectively, trying. But yeah. No, yeah, I think he would be an interesting roommate. He would have been an interesting roommate. Good stories. He always seemed to be in charge or in control. So
there'd always be hoes.
He'd always be what?
There would be hoes.
Okay. Oh, chicks. Yeah, well, I guess that's what I mean.
All the time, no?
Well, I mean, that's the impression that it gives, eh? I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with having... how do I put this gently? There's nothing wrong with having interesting guests in your home, as long as they're interesting in the sense of not burning the place down or having, you don't want too interesting, The silver goes missing. That's a little too interesting. But, interesting house guests can be quite nice, just like interesting roommates.
What if you had to get up at 7 in the morning?
Well, geez. I mean, I've seen pictures ever since I was a kid about that mansion in Los Angeles. It looked pretty soundproof, but I mean, if it was not soundproof, then that'd be a bit of a problem, yeah. I think, unless, one of those interesting house guests happen to, burrow next to you and, you're like spooning each other as you fall asleep, then I have no problems, with that. It could be interesting.
There'd be egg hunts with
There would be egg hunts, exactly. Going on. Okay, so this whole thing with Uber, I was reading here that drivers in London, England can trace back their cab lineage to 1634. Ay, chihuahua. That's older than the scotch I have in my wine cellar in the basement.
Is it Quebec is going to cancel Uber?
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. They're wanting to have their regulations on par with their taxi drivers and have, 35 hours of training or something, and a whole bunch of other things. And Uber is saying, oh no, that's just unfair. Oh, we don't want to do this. And I think they had, like Quebec, London had 8 million, I think it is, users. And so everybody's like, oh, don't take our Uber away. And but Quebec, yeah, they were saying that they wanted it to be more in line with what they have with regards to the taxi drivers, and the taxi union's been calling for this. And Uber is saying, oh no, we're not going to do this.
Rather than Canada now trying to improve its position, it's just trying to cling on to what it had.
Mm-hmm.
And then the American, I mean, it is a...
Well, and this is what's happened this week. Sorry for talking over you. You've now got the Premier of Quebec and the Premier of Manitoba fighting against each other. Because on the one hand, Couillard is saying, oh, well, I got a bit of Irish in me. Don't piss me off there, Boeing, huh? This is tens of thousands of Quebec jobs. And meanwhile, the Premier of Manitoba is saying, well, hold on a second there, Quebec. We have lots of Boeing jobs here in the province of Manitoba, and we rely on these jobs for our economy. And so now you have this interprovincial, war of words over, protecting their valuable tax base and jobs.
Let me ask you this. Is this the Avro all over again?
Oh,
exactly,
I was totally thinking
the
that.
Avro.
Yeah, totally, yeah. No, that did cross my mind a couple of times this week when I heard the 220% tariff increase. I thought, Times National, Friday, September 29th, 2017. This is by Ron Nixon. Proposal to collect social media data from immigrants raises privacy concerns. Ron Nixon in Washington. The Department of Homeland Security will soon be collecting social media data from all immigrants entering the United States. Part of what agency officials call an effort to more effectively screen those coming to the country, but privacy advocates see an unnecessary intrusion that would do little to protect national security. The department will begin collecting the information on October 18th, the same day the Trump administration's new travel ban on citizens of 7 countries and restrictions on those from 2 others are set to take effect. Green card holders and naturalized citizens will also have their social media information collected, with data becoming part of their immigration file.
So what about a visitor?
Yeah, well, it says that you will have your information, your social media information collected, and it will be part of your file.
You sort of said immigrants.
It says here that all immigrants entering, and it says national. Okay.
Because. Yeah. So they're gonna want to see my Twitter account.
Yeah, of course. And it's not only.
How long is it gonna take the guy to read 44,600 tweets?
It could be, they could have an algorithm that that reads your social media thing while you're standing there being interrogated, and if anything comes up as a suspect word, like in phone calls, they have a list of things that you can say in phrases or just a single word, and automatically the phone call will be recorded. So as it stands now, if I were to go over the border to the United States, if I owned a cell phone or a tablet, they would want to see it. So, I mean, that's already in effect, right? And also for people who, also your social media account. So even if you're just going down for the day to visit, to Buffalo or to Windsor or to, Ogdensburg, or Minnesota, depending on where you are in Canada, or Bangor. So if you're just going for the day to do some shopping at the farmer's market, you're going to have your cell phone looked at, and you're going to have your tablet looked at. So we have no rights as soon as you hit the border.
Mm.
So if you're...
So don't tweet about plutonium-240 or...
No. Basically, if you want to go to the United States,
$235.
you got to kiss their red hemorrhoid ass, man. I could have said that better, but... now all the hemorrhoid people, lobby group will be angry that I said that. Why are you denigrating hemorrhoids? But, so there are no rights anymore. You are a basic, they warned all about this happening.
Okay, so they read my Twitter feed.
Mm-hmm. Or your Facebook or whatever, yeah, exactly.
So if you're against pollution or something, then...
You're an enemy of the United States.
Well, I think you've concluded that.
Yeah, but I mean...
They check your... You didn't really say what they check your social media for.
Well, it says, they say here, right here, any public messages, anything that you have on Facebook or other social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
The pilot projects began in December 2015. So this was already underway.
You said what they check, but you didn't say what they check it for. What are they looking for?
So the...
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it says, let me get to it. Counterterrorism officials and lawmakers grew increasingly worried about the use of social media by terrorist groups like the Islamic State and many others. And so this is why the Obama administration has asked to say, okay, look, we need to get people to provide their social media information and start running a bunch of pilot projects. So
they're not necessarily going to be against somebody who's complaining about contamination of the Navajo water supply with uranium tailings from some corporation who's part of a superfund. I mean, then that's somebody who cares about the land of America, wouldn't you? So you're not necessarily saying they're going to filter out environmentalists or anti-pollution.
Because they're environmentalists that have taken dramatic actions in the past that could be considered depending on who you're speaking to.
Like tweeting?
Tweeting leads to protests. Protest leads to rocks being thrown and private property being destroyed. So, I mean, it's not the thread that I would use, but, law enforcement and government being what they are, and military, being what they are, they could link A to B to C to D, and next thing you know, an innocent protest by the grannies is now an innocent protest by the raging grannies, and the raging grannies are being locked up and hogtied and thrown into the back of a police van
So
for
you're
a ride
saying,
down the Cherry Beach Express to have
so you think
kicked out
my
of them.
Twitter account means that I'm not going to be able to cross the border into the United States?
Oh, I don't think after this, all the last 12 episodes, I think you're now on a list. If you weren't on a list before, you're definitely on a list now. So.
Because I care about stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I care too, but because we care and we're not
complaining
cool.
that we're ruining stuff.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like the first person you'd want in your country. He doesn't even live there, and he gives a shit about the stuff.
And look at all the people that cared about civil rights and equal rights in the United States in the late 50s, early 60s. They were called radical leftist hippies, and they were regarded as being pot freaks, anti-establishment type people that didn't agree with the colonial way of doing things.
In the free world.
Yeah. It's not free. It's not free.
Yeah, but we have, we have freedom of speech and...
To a degree. You can't run into a theater and say, hey, man, the theater's on fire, when it's not. There's responsible free speech. Yeah, it just the second paragraph, the beginning of the second paragraph, the department will begin collecting the information on October 18th, the same day the Trump administration's new travel ban. Second paragraph. And it says green card holders and naturalized citizens will also have their social media information collected, with data becoming part of their immigration file. It was unclear whether the monitoring will take place only in the application process or would continue afterwards. That's paragraph number 3. The department published the new requirement in the Federal Register last week, saying it would collect social media handles, aliases, and associated identifiable information, and search results, which would include the application's immigration file. It said the data would come from publicly available information obtained from the Internet, public records, public institutions, interviewees, so whoever the fuck, commercial data providers.
So these aren't U.S. citizens.
No, they are U.S. citizens. There's people who are like U.S. green card holder. You're a U.S. citizen and a naturalized citizen. You are a U.S. citizen, but you've come from another country, and you've been accepted as an American citizen. That's what being a green card holder is. Lorne Green, any Canadian person that lives in the United States and has an American citizenship with their green card, right? The vote on, was it Monday or Tuesday this week? Kurdistan voting for independence. And then we have tomorrow's vote in Spain, or in Catalonia. And how in a supposedly European country, part of the European Union, the police are surrounding, as we speak, the schools where the balloting is going to take place, and is ordering everybody to vacate the properties or they'll all be arrested, mass arrests. And the police have seized over 10 million ballots from a warehouse for tomorrow's vote. And the president of Catalonia has said if there's a majority that within 48 hours they'll declare independence from Spain. So, again, it's interesting how we say we're all democratic, but just below the surface there's fascist or communist or whatever tendencies. So I just find it really interesting how, Spain, for instance, the Franco-fascist, people are still very much in charge, and they had suppressed the Catalonia region for 40, 50 years before finally emerging and everything with the EU and all that in the last 10 years. So it's interesting how they're threatening to arrest all these people for trying to do their thing. So, and then with Kurdistan, or the Kurds, I think Turkey has, again, this is all just from memory, has, as of yesterday, You can't land in Mosul, I think it is. They've said no. Iraq has closed down the airspace, and they're saying that by the end of the weekend they have to turn over their airports and their port of entries to the Iraqi military and government. So so that sounds like that's another powder keg that's waiting to blow up. So it doesn't seem like there's ever going to be peace. I mean,
didn't we buy their loyalty sort of at the Iraq wars by the Bushes? I mean, that's kind of a deal sort of made with the Kurdish. I mean, even through those wars, they were talking about Kurdish autonomy.
Yeah. Well, it was after they were gassed by Saddam Hussein, when Saddam Hussein...
Right, but now we're pulling the plug
on their independence because it's not convenient for the Turks, it's not convenient for the Syrians, it's not convenient for the Iraqis, the Iranians, or the Georgians, or the Russians. And it's convenient for the Kurds. They've been arguing, hey, look, you guys in the West, after World War I, divided all this up. This used to be part of the Ottoman Empire.
So
and before
2 years from now, rather than IS or ISIS or Al-Qaeda, it's going to be America's always been at war with Eurasia or Oceania. Or
the Assad regime is basically the de facto winner in all of this, and that's within a year or two everybody's going to forget about it, which I don't think is going to happen because tens of thousands of people have disappeared and have been tortured under the Assad regime, and apparently
so why can't they unseat that Assad guy?
Okay, I'm hypothesizing here. The Middle East, like a lot of regions around the world, are still very much tribes. I guess we're all tribes in a way: liberals, Democrats, new Democrats, conservatives, progressive conservatives, Greens. So it's just so fractured in Syria that, and I think that's because there's so many extremists that Assad is, he's the mild hot sauce. He's not the extreme hot sauce at 1,000 Scovilles. He's at, Taco Bell hot sauce. He's manageable. You could put it in a baby's mouth, and it's really not chili sauce. It's a simulated chili. So, that's Assad. He's palatable to Russia. He's palatable to the West. He's palatable to America.
It was certainly a place where Canadians and Americans like to send people to be tortured before this whole thing blew up.
You read my mind. Exactly. We cooperated with the Assad regime for years.
He was probably known to be stable through this whole theater of international politics that's gone on. You know what I was expecting you to say is because they know stuff about our complicity that would come out if they were unseated. They know something.
Well, again, I mean, it's the attention of a goldfish. Human beings, for the most part, have. So, I mean, look, the majority of Americans didn't even know that Puerto Rico is part of the United States and that they're American citizens.
Well, it's interesting. So he hasn't taken 40 U.S., kids hostage and put his hand on their heads while he holds a rifle the way some of these other Gaddafi
I know the picture you're referring to, exactly, yeah.
So I guess sort of moderated crazy. Is he, a dentist or something?
Yeah, he's a physician, yeah, exactly. So,
give too many x-rays or
he was I think he was an orthodontist from London. He and his wife lived in London, England, and when his dad died, his brother, for whatever reason, didn't want the gig. Or wasn't competent enough, or I don't know, corrupt enough, and so he became the de facto leader. And they thought that there was going to be a lot of reform under him because he's eloquent and well-spoken, soft-spoken, educated, enlightened. But as is demonstrated in other dictatorships or in monarchies, it's the people that surround you that are really the ones that are in control, and you're just the de facto figurehead, right? So that's why the people say with regards to Kim in North Korea, he's been educated in Neuchâtel or whatever in France or in Switzerland, and he has all these Western ideals. If he doesn't want to be assassinated, he has to show himself as being a ruthless motherfucker. And so, yeah, he'll have his uncle killed by a cannon or eaten by dogs or whatever it is. These stories that we hear. I mean, these stories could be from North Korea or from South Korea or from the Japanese or the Americans. They could be totally fictitious. But if they are to be believed, this pudgy little second in line to the throne of the dynasty in North Korea had to show that he was ruthless. If you believe that, so that might be the same thing about Assad. They might be Western educated, but they have to, if they want to stay alive and stay in power, they have to go to the dark side. Albeit if it's even temporary, right?
So does Trump have to act like the tough guy in order to hang on to his power?
No, he's always been a bully.
Yeah, but actually, he was walking into an environment where he didn't have much knowledge nor strings to pull, to be quite honest. Maybe that helps explain why he's so over the top. Okay, here's another stupid observation that I want your opinion on. Most of the time it's when stuff doesn't add up and then you just skip over it and don't think too much about it. But, okay, so no... except I think you claim but everyone else I've ever heard of was totally blindsided when Trump won.
Yeah, I was laughing, man. Yeah, I told you he was going to. Even the night of the election, I said, he's going to win. And you're like, nah, he's not going to win. I'm going, no, he's winning. No, he's going to win. And I remember how depressed, I'm not saying that with a smile on my face, but I remember how depressed you sounded. And you were just like...
Can I finish? Can I finish, please?
No, you can't. No.
What are the two characters from South Park who are the Canadians? Terrence and Pete?
Oh.
Can I finish? Okay. Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
Right. Now, thank you for hijacking that. Okay, so Hillary. Everyone except you on the planet, and Coulter, were totally shocked. I don't know if that means you're in good company or not. I'm pretty sure it's bad company. But whatever. Okay, you and Coulter agreed. So that's perfect. Good for you. Golf club, okay? Okay. Now, everybody else on the planet, everybody else, 6.9999 billion, okay? Were totally blown away. Took them months of post-traumatic stress, and some of us couldn't talk to other people. It blew us away. Could not, never in a billion years.
And I still don't get it. I don't understand how all these pundits and talking heads.
Can I finish, please? Can I finish?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's a bubble. You see it. You don't agree, but you see it. Giant bubble. Everybody will say, okay? And now throw in the Russians. And now, months and months later, turns out testimonies given by Facebook. Testimonies given by Twitter. Now, I was on the Twitters, and it was totally saturated with anti-Hillary stuff. But even in my bubble, I saw there was a lot of people fighting back, and so just like negative attention.
Yeah.
But the point is, it was all Hillary. So even against the Hillary, for the Hillary, if you live in the bubble, the language is still Hillary, and so it reinforces this idea Hillary's the one they're talking about, Hillary's got all the action, Hillary's going to win. What about this? The investigation, Senate, House, and the Mueller investigation are all focusing on the Russian influence on the election. Now Facebook and Twitter, which have, despite your participation or not, have changed a lot of the buzz that goes on amongst the proletariat, the voters. What if the reason why it's more important than we've been led to think is that bubble that we all felt
Yeah.
and it took us months to get over.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the result of Russian influence. Everybody was blown away, except you, and thought, wow, I've been, at least reasonably able to gauge previous elections. This one is unlike any other one. It has blown my mind more than any other one. I realized I was in a bigger bubble than I've ever been in before. What if it turns out the bubble is the effect of Russian influence? Because the question is, if we're all arguing about Russian influence on the previous election, the first thing you want to say is, well, where did it actually show itself? What is the one defining characteristic of the last election that shows the effect? We all see how it may have influenced, but we don't actually see what the effect was for sure. And you'll say, well, Trump won, that's the effect. Maybe that wasn't the actual effect or the primary, or maybe that was just one of the effects. The effect that stands out, what's the weirdest thing about the last election? You could say, oh, it was Russian influence in it. Could it be that the effect of Russian influence on our last election in the United States was that very bubble? What if the effect of Russian influence on the last election was making Hillary seem like a sure win? Now, that's a little wacky, but you know how it goes. If you're sure that Hillary's going to win with a big majority, and some of us thought that the win would be so profound that it would turn over the majority in both the Republican and in both the Senate and in the House of Representatives.
Congress.
Right? Some of us were so sure the win would be that. And when it's like in Mulroney, well, this is poorly worded and badly thought out, but there's this weird effect where if you think someone else is going to win with a 99% of the vote, you'll vote for the other guy to balance the strength of his majority. That's a little whacked for you. Like you'll be more, if you're sure that Hillary will win, you might vote Green just so the Green Party gets a couple votes. Whereas
you're
if you thought it was a tight race, maybe you'd go all in on one way or another. But I just wonder if one of the effects could have been, well, if we're as bad at voting as I argue we are, then I just wonder if because I think that one of the reasons why Hillary lost was we were sure Trump wouldn't win.
Well, the Electoral College.
Do you see what I've said, though?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if that statement is true, then if you were the Russians and you wanted Trump to win, then you would make Hillary look more popular than she really is. And then we wouldn't panic. We wouldn't call out the borderline vote. And we'd all be sure Hillary would win. And next thing you know, Trump wins. And the evidence of that is that we were all sitting there scratching our head going, wow, it's so unusual. I was in such a weird bubble during this election. Maybe that's why the two houses, Senate and House of Representatives, and the Mueller investigation are investigating with such zeal, is because it really did affect the election more than we want to think it did.
The American people were the puppets, and the Russians were the puppet masters. It's something that's been going on for thousands of years, whether people realized it was going on or not,
Will the Americans interfere in the next Russian election?
They've been doing it for...
But now Grandma and Grandpa will be trying.
Wow.
Even...
You can direct... Look, I mean, it's so easy. I mean, for people...
Why isn't Fox News saying, well, during the next Russian election, like they could be calling out their viewership to get on the train of...
Well, this is where responsible media comes in and dangerous media comes in. This is when it becomes state-sponsored propaganda or corporate propaganda. Our conversations and our thought are being directed subtly.
Do you ever get the feeling that even this conversation we're having right now could be being recorded?
I take it as a given that we are being recorded.
Coming up on the next episode of TMI.
Boris and social media. Do you have a social media account? Let's tweet each other.
Domed Orange?
Domed Orange. Yeah.
And then the Golden Comb Over.
The Golden Comb Over. There you go.
I want my bubble back. The Russians stole my bubble.
Anyway.
Find our webpage at libsyn.com. Subscribe to us on Laughable, Stitcher, YouTube, Player FM, Google Play, Castbox, Blueberry, Listen Notes, and iTunes.
Almost anywhere you find podcasts. Email the show if you'd like to be a guest or leave a comment. Archer@twxnet.com.
Here's his little story. Canada Post. You order something. My mailman, the last time something came, he called up from the lobby, which is what it says right on the address, the buzzer code. So he buzzes up and he says, "Can you come down to the lobby and get this package?"
Yeah.
So I get down to the lobby and he's bent over pressing buttons on the intercom, buzzing a whole list full of people.
Oh.
It could be wheelchair, older people, younger people. Anyway, so that's his new job now, is working the intercom, and now people are assembling in the lobby.
It's like bloody Santa Claus giving out gifts.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this time, he because they're self-supervised, there's no supervision.
Yeah.
There's this federal thing, but whatever. Okay. So this time, now he's doing the usual thing, which is where they sit in their truck and they don't even buzz people. He probably got in some trouble for that, but whatever. So they just mark it as nothing, because my phone actually, I know if he buzzes up, it goes to my cell phone, it leaves a mark. It's it's so, and I was home. The scan code for failed delivery is 3:00. Well, I was home from noon till 5.
Okay.
So he didn't buzz up. He didn't come to the door. He was able to come in and somehow use his mailman's key to get into the mailroom and tuck very quietly, without alerting anyone, the failed to delivery notice into my mailbox in the mailroom downstairs, but not buzz or any of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the form that they leave, which is a federal document written in ink by a federal employee, it says, "Your package will be available to pick up tomorrow at 1 p.m. Well, if that ever happens on a Friday and you try to go get your package on Saturday or Sunday, according to federal law, tomorrow does not include Saturday and Sunday.
It's not a business day.
They're not morrows. Well, it doesn't say business day. It says will be available tomorrow after 1 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say, due to failure of understanding basic English, the federal government reserves the right to exclude Saturday and Sunday from being a tomorrow and or day. Saturday and Sunday are not days, despite the fact that they have the word day in their names. But whatever, that's fine. That's fine. Just move forward from there. So, but the day in question was a Thursday and tomorrow. All right, tomorrow. So, but this is well known to anyone who's been a victim of Canada Post. So, the next day at 1 p.m., the package is not at the substation.
Oh, nice.
And at 5:30 the next day, the package is not And it wasn't actually at the substation till 8:45 that night. But I'm just saying, there's a checkbox that says after 1 p.m. And so I guess there's a little bit of sway on the interpretation of what after 1 p.m. Well, I guess technically, yes. No, it really was after 1 p.m. It just wasn't, any time. Anyway. That's typical Canada Post Service 10 out of 10 times. So they don't ring the bell, they don't bring it up, they don't leave the notice on your door. They will use a mail key to get into a separate room in the building and sneak the was not home notice into your mailbox, despite the fact that you were here and your iPhone would have recorded any calls that had come in from the... it's standard. So, and it's like, well, why do we have UPS, FedEx, and other competitors? And this is why. And it's like, right, it doesn't matter how many times you complain or talk to a supervisor or whatever. And they do whatever they want. Like I said to you before, like last time he was working the intercom, getting people to come down to the lobby. Like he just does whatever he wants.
That same time he could have just gone to the apartments, knocked on the doors, and had everything dropped off. And then.
Oh, yeah. I'm Dave Archer in Toronto.
And I'm Ian Stolberg in Ottawa.